Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. This is episode 6 of Inside the Numbers. I'm Hunter Aschenbrenner, joined by Jake Auerbach, as per usual. Today, we are joined by two very special guests, two big Knicks fans, Sam Goodman and Ethan Hornstein. Today, we're going to be previewing the upcoming Knicks series against the Hawks starting Saturday night. And let's get into it, all right?
Do it.
Yeah, super exciting. NBA playoffs coming up. Good time. MLB season rolling along. Sorry, and then NHL is going to get underway soon. Masters just wrapped up, so pretty exciting times right now. And then obviously the Knicks. So let's get into
Yeah,
it.
pretty excited for the Knicks. We know Jake won't be able to contribute much going on with the Knicks, but that's why me and Sam are here. We're happy to be here, and we're looking forward to talking about some playoff basketball.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I know more than you. You think?
So
Maybe.
let's get into it. So the Knicks finished 53 and 29. They earned the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference with the Pistons at 1, the Celtics at 2. The good thing, they're completely healthy into the playoffs. Mitchell Robinson is obviously the one that you worry most about injuries. He's all good. What are your guys' feelings into the playoffs as we get underway, and how are you guys feeling about this team?
All right, I could start if you guys want. So, me personally, I feel like I'm one of many Knicks fans who could have preferred Toronto in this matchup, but instead the chips didn't fall our way. Ended up getting Atlanta, which I mean, to be fair, to be the best, you gotta beat the best. So we're not here to just, get a cakewalk to the championship. So like just give me whoever at this point. So Atlanta, they're a tough team, but do they really have that top-notch playoff experience like the Knicks do? I mean, we're gonna find out, but the atmosphere at the Garden is gonna be insane. Everybody knows that. Little get back from 2021 with Trae Young, although he's not on the team anymore. So yeah, I think it'll be very interesting and a very physical series.
Hmm.
Yeah, pretty pleased with the Knicks season. I would say there were obviously everyone saw the ups and downs that there were, but I think I could confidently say this is the best Knicks team I've seen in my lifetime. And even though I'm upset about, no, I wouldn't say upset. A little more concerned about the Hawks than I would be with the Raptors. Like Sam said, you're going to have to go through those tough teams. And I don't necessarily think the Hawks are anything people should be going crazy over. I may have overreacted a little bit myself. I think
Hmm.
that the Hawks are a good team. And one of the reasons that gets me slightly scared, we'll obviously get more into it, but one of the reasons that gets me slightly scared for this series is how hot they've been. Even though a lot of their wins have come versus the bottom half of the league, any momentum going into the playoffs, it's very hard to beat a team that's built the most confidence that they have throughout the whole season, and they're still building it right now, but they are at their apex of confidence right now. So that's my thoughts going into the series.
Yeah, it was definitely a roller coaster season, as you mentioned. We've seen this team go on absolute heaters when they won the NBA Cup, and they dominated the top of the league, like the Spurs, the Nuggets. They beat the Celtics a couple times. The team they struggled with most was the Pistons, of course. We'll see if they match up later in the playoffs. But overall, they're better in most categories. They're top 10 in offensive, defensive net ratings, but they're going to be starting against the Hawks, as we said. And I feel like last year, as Sam said, that it's not, you don't always want the easier matchup. I feel like a lot of people said last year when they faced the Pistons that team really came together after they defeated Detroit, and it helped them when they faced off against Boston the following round. So obviously, Atlanta's a tougher opponent than Toronto. The Knicks swept Toronto in the season series, but against Atlanta, they went 2-1. Both wins came only a 3-point margin. They lost the middle game on January 2nd, but two key Knicks players with Towns and Hart were out. So again, with those past matchups, we know we watched them earlier in the season. What do you think the key is for the Knicks going in on how to play this Atlanta team? We'll start with Sam.
All right. So me personally, like I said before, this Atlanta team, they're very physical and they're very streaky. So as you mentioned, they went on a very hot streak to end the season. So, just keeping them maintained, keeping them controlled to make sure that, they don't take the crowd out of the MSG game, like the games at MSG. Don't take the crowd out of it because that's solely the reason why they could win a game or two. The Knicks could win a game or two. So I think it's important to, play at the pace that the Knicks want to play at. Don't play the Hawks' pace because if they start playing at the pace that they're not comfortable at, the game will lose. Like they'll start losing the game. They'll start losing control of the game and turning the ball over and making messy mistakes that are totally avoidable. So overall, my two keys for the game are containing the crowd, making sure that they're in it most of the game, and don't make sloppy mistakes that will cost you later on.
Yeah, I agree.
I think this series is very interesting for one reason, and this is my key. This might be a lot of other Knicks fans' keys, but a lot of the kind of, I would say frustration coming from Knicks fans throughout the year was because when the Knicks played these very physical teams, they kind of backed down from physicality. But I think that the Hawks are a rare case where the Knicks are the much more physically imposing team than the Hawks. I think that Onyeka Okongwu, he's a great shooter. He obviously has his positives on the court. I think that he's a very weak center. I think that should be a very good matchup for Towns and Mitchell Robinson. I think that OG Anunoby and Josh Hart are both more physically imposing than Jalen Johnson. Even though Jalen Johnson is a physical player and a lot of his game comes at the rim, I think that uh, OG and Josh Hart are more physically imposing than Jalen Johnson. And the Hawks guards are kind of small, like CJ McCollum. Even though we do have Brunson, who's a small guard, CJ McCollum is kind of similar to Brunson in the sense that they try to hide him on defense. And he's not a very physical guy. If you can get switches onto him or even play physical for him on defense, he's a guy on offense that relies on getting space. So if the Knicks play physical with him, it's going to be tough to come by. Same with Nikhil Alexander Walker. He's a guy where if you give him a little bit of space, similar to his cousin, he's going to beat you with the mid range. He's going to beat you with the three ball. He can pretty much do everything well. If you have a physical defender on him being physically imposing, I think it's a tough matchup. And I think that overall, 1 through 5, the Knicks have actually great matchups in the starting lineup with the Hawks in terms of physicality, which I like a lot.
Yeah, you mentioned how the Knicks semi like backed out of the physicality. Obviously, the guys that come to mind are Bridges and Towns when you think about that. But obviously, you mentioned Nikhil Alexander Walker. You assume that Mikal Bridges is going to be matched up against him on defense, and then you think that it's going to be OG Anunoby matching up against their All-Star Jalen Johnson. But Karl Anthony Towns, he's the guy that if the Knicks are going to cruise through this series and get to what everyone assumes to be Boston in round two, they need to be able to get him the ball and let him dominate. And I feel like the big storyline that within the play of the Knicks to end the season was the pick and roll and two-man game that Brunson and Towns have started to like fully like emerge with. You know, when Towns was traded to New York before last season, that was really what like everyone was promised and what we thought was really going to happen. And then in the early portions of last year, we saw it, and then teams started to switch off of Towns, and it really went absent until the end of this season. Is that really the offensive key for this team? And do you really think that Mike Brown withheld this from his opponents until we got close to the playoffs like we did?
See, okay, I think Mike Brown is a fantastic coach. Like overall, his scheme style. I mean, some may disagree, as you could see, Ethan Hunter giving it a little chuckle, but I think he's a good coach, and he's a players coach that the players like to be around. So I feel like he's smart enough to be able to not hide, but not really release that pick and roll from Brunson and Cat like you mentioned until the end of the season. Because we saw in games like I don't know 75 to 82 where we saw the action where Brunson would take the ball up and right at the logo, Cat would be there and be ready for either the pick and roll or the pick and fade, which he's either to do both, which is why he's again one of my key players in this series because as Ethan mentioned, Onyeka Okongwu, he's a center who can shoot the ball really well, just like Cat, but he's not as tall nor as physical as Cat. Therefore, I feel like he may be uncomfortable guarding Cat in the post and by the rim, whatever the case may be. So even if they have to switch off, I just think Cat is a main player in the series that if Brunson's able to get him the ball, it could be very well for the both of them. Like defense, for the bad for the defense, good for the offense.
Yeah, I actually saw, I'm pretty sure most Knicks fans saw this, but Jalen Brunson was actually asked post game about it after the Celtics game, and it was very interesting to me. I don't remember exactly, but I forgot the reporter, it might have been Stefan Bondi. He said to him, like, have you guys been holding back this pick and roll with Cat, and do you think it's effective? He kind of like chuckled a little bit and was like, yes, it's effective. So he didn't really address the holding it back part, but he repeated himself twice actually. He said, yes, it's really effective. So I think that there could, honestly, I don't care if Mike Brown withheld it or just thought of this last week because all I care about is that they're doing it. Like, obviously, it's a good talking point, but I just want them to be doing it in the playoffs. And obviously, Dyson Daniels is one of the best on-ball defenders in the league. But do they really have defenders that will be switching on to Brunson and the Cat PNR, or even doubling Brunson and then being able to rotate onto Cat if he swings it back? I just think that against a team like the Hawks, who really only have one elite defender, I just think that that's got to be our most effective play on offense.
Yeah, I feel like it was. I mean, when you look at the Knicks' path to the NBA Finals right now, you're looking at the Hawks and then likely Boston, and then we'll see about the conference finals if Detroit or Cleveland gets there. But I feel like that's really with the two-man action, they really struck gold with these teams. I mean, who's going to be able to in the first two rounds? Who's going to be able to switch on to Cat? Like he's going to be matched up against Okonkwo, against the Hawks, and then if they get to Boston, it's probably going to be Vucevic. Like, and if they switch off, who's it going to be? Tatum off the Achilles? Like the offense has a real opportunity to just dominate early on until they get to that third round. But absolutely, it's been huge for the team. All right, so as we know, for a lot of the last 2 years, the Knicks' biggest struggle, I'd say, has been their slow starts. And it was a big reason why Tom Thibodeau got fired, him not wanting to change the starting five of Brunson, Towns, Anunoby, Hart, and Bridges. But while they get off to a lot of slow starts, and that's continued into this year, they're the best fourth quarter team in the entire NBA. And I just think that's absolutely huge for this team as they go into the biggest time of the year.
I'm going to get involved here, but I think it's going to come down. I think it's going to be big. Obviously, if they can keep it close in the first three quarters, we know that they're going to succeed in the fourth quarter. That comes up clutch in big moments in the fourth quarter and late in playoff games. That's big, and that's how you win series, by making these clutch shots in these clutch moments. And some of these games come down to that. We saw that in March Madness. We saw that every year in the NBA playoffs. It's a common theme that games come down to the last 2-3 minutes, and I think that's going to be a big factor for the Knicks.
Yeah, and if I could just add something really quick, I think it's interesting and definitely something to be very grateful for. I think, in my opinion, the Knicks starting five, I trust every single one in that starting five to shoot with the game on the line. Even Mikal Bridges, who I'm not the biggest fan of, we saw in the playoffs last year. He was probably our clutchest player in the playoffs last year. Towns, his Towns has had his moments throughout his career. Brunson, obviously, the clutch player of the year. OG has been in tons of playoff runs before. And Josh Hart, we just saw last week, he hit two dagger threes in a crazy atmosphere versus the Celtics. So I trust everyone in our starting five.
And if I would add something, so if you know me, I'm like a pretty pessimistic fan. So I mean, I'm always thinking about the worst. So I feel like I'm very grateful that this team knows how to play in the fourth quarter, but if you start bad in the first quarter of a playoff game, there's a team, now I'm not saying the Knicks do this, but there are teams out there that will totally fall behind the entire game and just lose momentum in the game. And when you're talking like playoff series at home, game one, you don't want to start off slow to take your fans out of the game, as I mentioned earlier. You don't want to do all these things to not have your fans behind you when you play in one of the most important atmospheres of your career.
Also,
Yeah.
along
Obviously,
with that,
I just want to add
being
something.
in,
Obviously, it's
yeah.
great in the regular season to have these big moments in the fourth quarter, but playoff time is different. You know, you're playing against good teams every game, so you want to get off to a good start in these games, because if you fall down too much, then against these better teams in the playoffs, it's not going to be as easy as it is if you're playing against the Pacers or a terrible team like that, and you're not going to be able to make a play in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
also, if you're starting off slow, let's say, in Atlanta, which a lot of Knicks fans, I'm expecting a lot of Knicks fans to be making that trip to Atlanta, similar to how we saw in Philadelphia. One of the reasons we won that Philly series was because of how comfortable the Knicks were playing on the road, especially in game six when they blew a lead, that they took an early lead and blew it. But it's going to be a lot of Knicks fans in Atlanta. If they start off slow, the Knicks fans might get drowned out. The Hawks fans are going to be very loud. They're not going to want the Knicks fans to take over, even if the Knicks keep it around close. So I think that starting off well, especially on the road, is big for this series.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a big thing with this team, I'm going to compare them to the Celtics before they won that championship a couple years back. How they get in the playoffs every single year and they just can't get over the hump. This team's been through it all. For the most part, the core together, Brunson and Hart, they've been here for a very long time. And then Towns, Anunoby, and Bridges have been sprinkled in as we've gone along. But they've been through so much, we go back to that all the way back when they lost in Miami at the start of the Brunson era. And then they lost that game 7 against the Pacers. And then last year they lost against the Pacers again. They've been through so much as a roster together. And it's really, last year, the reason they beat Boston was those 2 20-point comebacks on the road. So you obviously don't want to get down too much early. But there's going to be a confidence with this team that they can pull through whatever, whenever. They were down, it was like 17 points into the fourth quarter in both games 1 and 2 versus Boston last year.
Yeah, I mean, said it beautifully.
Yep, confident in the team for sure.
Yeah, and they've got the players that step up, as you said, like Brunson, obviously the clutch player of the year. Josh Hart's notorious for hitting those late in the shot clock, late in the game. Whenever there's less than 3 seconds on the shot clock, I want him with the ball. Just chucking it up from wherever on the court. So it's huge for this team to have that experience playing together. Obviously a new coach this year, which is going to be very interesting to see how they play in these big games.
I have a quick question. Do we have any players on the roster who have won a title?
OG.
Yeah, but he didn't even play in that playoff game.
Yeah.
In that
He
playoff
had
series.
he had appendicitis. What
Oh
Embiid
yeah,
has.
I remember he
Yeah.
had same as Embiid. Yeah. So
Mhm.
he's
So
the only
they
player
have
that won a ring.
Yes.
that plays for the most part, yes.
He was a bench player for them that year.
Bridges has
Okay.
gotten close. Towns has gotten close.
Yeah. Bridges has played in Western Conference Finals, obviously Eastern Conference Finals.
Shamit.
Cat played West East, same with Shamit. Obviously all the Knicks did last year. The
Mhm.
experience is definitely nothing to worry about.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so they just haven't gotten over that hump. And Mike Brown's won a championship as an assistant coach. Tom Thibodeau never did in his career at all, which you feel for him. He was a basketball lifer and was never able to do that. We'll see if he gets back into coaching. But a big talking point with the Knicks is their 9 is set for the playoffs. You've got the starting 5 I mentioned, and then the core 4 off the bench is going to be Shamit, McBride, Robinson, and Jordan Clarkson, who I think his arc this season has been awesome to watch in his development as a player. But there's so much depth on this team. Do you think that's the correct 9? Anyone can answer this. Do you think that's the correct 9, or Alvarado, Diawara, even Jeremy Sohan can get some minutes? There's so many guys that you can feel comfortable with this team playing.
Yeah, I think that sorry, Sam. I'll take it away. So I think it's the correct 9. I mean, obviously you said with Clarkson, like Clarkson was a guy we saw. I remember watching the Knicks play a game in Indiana right after they not it was a little after they won the NBA Cup. It was just as Clarkson was maybe it wasn't Indiana, it might have been somewhere else, but Clarkson was just getting out of the rotation, and we saw Pacome Dadier and Kevin McCullough checking into games before Jordan Clarkson did. That's how buried on the bench he was. It was right before the trade deadline. It was him and Yabusele buried at the end of the bench, and Clarkson's worked his way back up. I don't necessarily think Clarkson's a guy that's going to be seeing 20 plus minutes in this series. I think that if he comes in the middle to end of the first quarter and the other team goes on a run, it's going to be a quick pull and in comes Mikhail or OG or Josh Hart back into the game. But I think that it's very important to have a guy like him that can create off the bench. I know that us Knicks fans, we love Alvarado as a person. We've come to like him as a player also. But I think that in a playoff series off the bench, you need a guy more that can create offensively with the ball handling with the second unit. And Clarkson's going to be ball handling for that second unit for majority of the series. And he's a creator. I mean, he's done this his whole career. We know he can do that. And the rest of the bench, these are guys, they've played in big moments. They've had their big moments. I have the utmost trust in them, and I have no concerns.
Yeah, okay, I agree with Ethan. I think that this is 100% the correct nine guys. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen the reports of the Knicks claiming to be hiding Diawara because of his free
Yeah,
agency.
that was a question earlier if they should really even play him that much because he's going to be a restricted free agent.
So, I mean, obviously, I don't know if that's what the Knicks are doing. I'm not in their front office. I don't know if they're hiding him to sign him later in the offseason so nobody knows about him. I don't know the case, but regardless, I do think that it is the correct nine because, like Ethan said, the four guys off the bench, Stammet has been consistent all despite the shoulder injury. He's been able to shoot lights out whenever we need him. But and Deuce McBride also coming off the injury. I think he's been great since the injury. Although the few tough 2 games, maybe 3 games right after it where he was a little rusty, but he's come to find his jump shot again. Clarkson can find a shot whenever you need it. Really, like he is a creator and some that you he has a skill type that you don't really see often. And of course, Mitchell Robinson is there. Just I mean, what like he does everything right basically besides free throws. Maybe he could use a little improvement, but yeah, I think overall. I think the extended guys off the bench past the front nine are very reliable, but I don't think that they should get playoff minutes. Like, for example, Josh Hart gets into foul trouble, or and then also Stammet gets into foul trouble. I think you'd be okay subbing in Diawara, but I don't think that they'd be the main guys, as Ethan kind of mentioned earlier, with them being buried at the bench, climbing their way back up. I do think they will have a good future with the team, though.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Deuce McBride, yeah, I'll just chime in right here and then you can make your point, Jake. Deuce McBride, they missed him a ton when he was out with that core muscle surgery. He's been huge for this team ever since they traded Emmanuel quickly. They gave him the extension right after the trade, and he's stepped in and he's been awesome ever since. But Jordan Clarkson, as I said, he came, when we signed him for the veteran minimum, it was really the thought that he'd be in that campaign role, but better. And then he started off well. He helped them a lot winning the NBA Cup, but he didn't really defend a lot. And then he really faded out, as you said, Ethan. And then he got back in the rotation, and he's really the defense has been that's been so interesting to me how he really buckled down to try and make an impact on this team to try and win a championship. You see, whenever he's in the game, if you watch, he's always fighting for the ball in the backcourt and like always fighting, pressing up full court. He's putting so much pressure on the defense. And I think that Jose Alvarado being here probably has helped him a lot with that. Just showing him and Deuce McBride as well is a very good guard who plays defense.
pretty sure he was top 10 in 3-point percentage too earlier in the season before the injury. So I mean, showing both sides of the ball, it's pretty important.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I don't really have a true opinion. I don't watch enough Knicks to know if the nine that they chose to play is really the correct nine. But I do think that the depth is going to be huge. I've mentioned this in every episode that we've talked about the NBA. I think that depth is huge in the playoffs. It's big, tough, physical, fast series, and in a 6 or 7 game series, no jokes. That can really wear out teams. And if we can kind of wear out the Hawks, I'm not sure how deep their bench is, but I mean, it
Not at all.
oh, you guys are nodding your head, but
They're not deep. Their bench is not deep at
Yeah.
all.
They're
okay, so
probably
the
going to
big-
go 7 guys max.
All right, so
Yeah,
if the
they'll go
Knicks can,
7 guys and then they'll play another guy for like 5 minutes probably. But yeah, that's it.
that's great. So if the Knicks can really run around, get physical, get big, wear out the Hawks, we have a 9-guy rotation, and we can really extend that to 10 or 11 if we need to. if someone gets into foul trouble or injuries, I think that's going to be huge for the Knicks down the stretch. I mean, you see Michigan, I'm bringing them up again. They just won the national championship, but they had like 7 or 8 guys who can really go out and play well at a high level. And they just obviously won it all. So it works. It works. The depth is huge when it comes to these big time games where things are faster and physical. So I think that's going to be big for the Knicks down the stretch.
Yeah, and I was actually looking at the Knicks Hawks past games for this season, and I happened to obviously stumble upon the one that happened just a few days ago. I think it was April 2nd. Um, the Hawks starters played, I think all of them played 37 plus minutes, and they maybe had 2 or 3 guys off the bench with obviously the injury to Jock Landale. I'm pretty sure he'll be okay for the series, but just it goes to show that I don't know if they'll have the depth to really keep up. And really, honestly, they could get tired out there. I mean, the Knicks play a physical, tough pace, so who knows what'll happen.
Yeah, just to add on quickly before we move on to our next topic, I think that a big thing for the series is that obviously Brunson, we saw him not drawing as many fouls this year as he has in the past. If Brunson can draw some early fouls on Dyson Daniels, they don't have a guy off the bench that can really come in and be an on-ball defender on him. I mean, off the bench for the Hawks, we can assume that it's going to be Kuminga, Gabe Vincent, and Jock Landale probably, and then maybe you'll see Riza Shea for a few minutes. I don't even know if they need another big, maybe Tony Bradley. I doubt it though. Their bench is it's just so weak that if they get some guys in foul trouble, that it should be a relatively easy time for the Knicks ball handlers.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that. But one last thing before I move on. Dyson Daniels, he's a great defender, but Brunson always cruises by him when they play. I mean, it's not like, I feel like the only 2 guys that Brunson really just hasn't been able to beat are the Thompson twins. But Dyson Daniels, I mean, if Brunson can get back to drawing those fouls, they don't have a true, they're really good with wings. They have a lot of wings, but they don't really have a true point guard and a true center. So, and that happens to be the Knicks' 2 best players. That's the big advantage they have. And I'll bring that into our next topic, which I want to go kind of around the horn and get the key player that we all think for this series. I'll start. I'm really looking at Mikal Bridges for as we get into this. Last year he was a bit of a playoff riser. He's been one throughout his career, and if he can not have one of those bad games where he can't shoot and he's getting cooked on defense, if he can really just stay consistent, be a good 4th or 5th option, that's going to go a long way for the Knicks.
All right. My player of the series, I'm gonna go in a slight different direction. I'm gonna go with Josh Hart. So obviously, throughout the episode, we've talked about Brunson and Daniels. We've talked about Towns versus Onyeka and how those matchups are gonna be. But I said previously earlier, one major weakness of the Hawks starting 5 is that CJ McCollum is a terrible defender. And what they did in the past matchup versus the Knicks last week was they hid CJ McCollum on Josh Hart. If Josh Hart is able to generate even any bit of shot creation and shot making on CJ McCollum, just as even 4th or 5th option, being able to count on him down the stretch, that's going to be huge offensively. And then also, we can expect OG to probably guard Jalen Johnson. But in the matchup, I actually watched the highlights before the episode. In the matchup last week, Josh Hart was the primary defender on Jalen Johnson. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we can probably guess Mike Brown just wasn't trying to show his full hand last game and that OG is going to be the main defender on Jalen Johnson. But if OG's into foul trouble or if OG's not looking great defensively, that's going to be Josh Hart's matchup. So I think that he can unlock the team in a big way.
Yeah, and then I just want to say this before you guys, Sam and Jake, give your player. You said as Josh Hart with his shot making, that's been another huge thing with this team. He wasn't a good defender good shooter. I'm sorry, over the past couple years, and then he worked with JJ Redick last offseason, I'm pretty sure, before he got the Lakers head coaching job. and he's become a very viable shooter where if the Hawks are going to stay off of him, like I suspect the Knicks are going to do with Dyson Daniels, I'm very confident in Josh Hart being able to knock down those shots and just keep the line moving.
Also with that finger injury that he had
Yeah.
in the beginning of the season.
Yeah, that was
and
nasty.
He was planning on having surgery mid-season. I don't know how it was going to work, but all right, I guess I'll go next. My guy is actually coming off the bench. It's Mitchell Robinson. That's my key player. Everyone's going to go in the direction of picking Karl Anthony Towns or Jalen Brunson or, as you guys said, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, going in the starter direction. I'm going in the bench because, like we said, the Hawks are a very, very thin team. So I think that what Robinson brings to the table is like no other in this series. So, for example, everyone knows what he does good. He protects the rim very well. He gets offensive rebounds. He creates second opportunities. So I think like his rim protection and his blocking talent is truly such a special skill, especially in this series because I mean, obviously they don't have Trae Young on their team anymore, but guys like Trae Young or players with that similar play type are not able to go up into the paint and shoot their little nice floaters or nice little jump shots without Mitchell Robinson being able to alter that shot. So I think players in that series like CJ McCollum, Nikhil Alexander Walker, they're gonna have a very tough time in the paint if they were to drive in and Mitchell Robinson is standing right there, right in front of the rim, because he's very good at protecting the rim. Second is obviously at the end of the day, most playoff series are won based off of the margins, whether that's the rebounding margins like we saw last year with Detroit and 2 years ago with Indiana, I think it was every game the team that won the rebounding battle won the game. So I mean, Mitchell Robinson obviously is probably one of the Knicks' best defenders, if not the best. So when a game is based off margins and you have one of the best rebounders in the entire league, I feel like he is definitely going to have a major part in the series, along with, his blocking talent. And he doesn't really, I mean, not that he really handles the ball much, but you don't really see him when he gets the ball in the paint. He doesn't turn the ball over. He keeps the ball high and he goes up whenever he gets a shot. So I think he's one of the guys that are very important for the series. He doesn't really turn the ball over. He obviously will get fouled with the hack and Mitch, but I think if he's able to knock down his free throws, he could be very dangerous and the player that the Hawks should not want to see on the floor.
Yeah, the Hawks are 18th in rebounding across the entire association. So they're not going to be able to keep up with. I mean, Mitch can come in, we see. He comes in and he just takes over a basketball game. He'll grab 4 offensive rebounds per possession. And then he'll go on and we've all seen the clip from last year's playoffs where he went across every single Boston defender and just locked them up. When he does that, he's unbelievable. And obviously a big factor we'll see is the hack of Mitch. Joe Mazzulla does that a lot for Boston because he can't deal with Mitchell Robinson. So we'll see if Quinn Snyder and the Hawks opt to do that to try and get him out of the game. But then you put your team in the bonus very early, and then boom, you give Brunson driving. He's going to go to the line. You get 2 shots.
Quick foul trouble.
I'm going to go a similar direction as Sam in taking it big, but I'm going to go Karl Anthony Towns. I just think he has more ability to really dynamically drive the game and kind of take over a game. So that's why I'm picking him as my key player. I've brought up physicality. I think the series is going to be won based off physicality. If the Knicks can play big and physical, and I think Cat is their best big, he's always going to be the biggest guy on the court. I just think he's really going to drive that physicality for the Knicks in what they need to win the series.
Yeah. It's a message to Mike Brown. Feed Karl Anthony Towns early and often. Get him involved and just keep on going to him. We saw last year against Detroit. In Detroit, he hit those 2 big shots, the fadeaway on the sideline and then the deep step back 3, which that was a big reason they were able to pull away from that series. If Cat is able to finish consistently at the rim, we know how much talent he's got. He's just an unbelievable player, and they just have to keep him involved consistently.
And that 20-point comeback in Indiana that same year,
Yeah.
last year, it was game 3 or 4. He literally single-handedly, Jalen Brunson, I'm not sure what happened.
He had 5 fouls that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a lot. He was in foul trouble. DeLon Wright was in the game for most of the game. Cat was the one who took responsibility. He drove to the rim. He got his way, led us all the way back, and got the victory.
Yeah, I know a lot of Knicks fans love Tom Thibodeau. It's just crazy that you just said DeLon Wright, who we saw barely all season. Landry Shamet as well didn't play a lot last season. And then they were playing in the Eastern Conference Finals consistently. So, I mean, as we've talked about the depth of this team, and also Mike Brown trusting the depth. So it's huge that they have that ability to go deep onto the bench and consistently get baskets. So I'm going to shift out of the Knicks, but lastly, I want to get the serious prediction for all of you. I'm going to start. I'm going to go the New York Knicks advancing in 5 games. I think Atlanta's just going to be, they're not going to be able to keep up with the Knicks. They're going to pull away easy. I'm even predicting they're going to lose game 4. That's my bold prediction. They're going to be up 3-0, and then they'll lose game 4 and come back to the Garden and finish it out.
I think that, like Hunter, I think that the Knicks are going to win in 5 games. I think that the Hawks will get their win on the road, I mean, at home, sorry, probably game 3 or game 4 at home. I don't think that their players aren't very experienced besides for CJ McCollum, who hasn't even been that deep into playoff runs. I don't think any of them have seen an atmosphere relatively close to Madison Square Garden in the playoffs. I think they're a great young team. I don't think they're quite as good as the Pistons were, who we faced in the first round last year. I don't think it's going to be an easy series, but I think the Knicks just are better, have more experience, and are more equipped to go deep in the playoffs.
Yeah, and before Sam, you give your prediction, they don't have a player like Kate Cunningham. Like Nikhil Alexander Walker had a great season. He was a backup in Minnesota the year before. Like he's not. Do they have a guy they're going to consistently go to other than Jalen Johnson? And even I don't trust his ability to consistently go to work and score on Anunoby or Bridges. So, I mean, it's just a weaker opponent.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm gonna throw the Hawks a little bone here and say Knicks in 6 because based on past trends, the Knicks have not been able to finish a series in 5 games. We say it every year, and the Knicks also have had a lot of struggles closing the series out at home, although they did in Game 6 against Boston last year. So I don't think it'll be 5 games. I think the Hawks team is very underlooked. Nikhil Alexander Walker had a fantastic season. Jalen Johnson, fantastic season. CJ McCollum, that trade deadline uh, ac- acquisition was a huge add for them, and he adds a very dynamic skill to the shooting that I don't think they've seen in a while. So again, Knicks in 6. I don't think that the Knicks will lose the series, but I don't think that they'll also win with ease, if that makes sense.
I agree with Sam completely. I think Knicks are going to win in 6 games. I think the Knicks have flaws, and I think the Hawks, they're still a good team. They're a playoff team. They're not playing in the play-in. They're a legit playoff team. I think that they're better than people are giving them credit for, but I still do think that the Knicks get this done. I just don't think it'll be in 5. I don't think it'll be as easy as people think, so I'm going to go 6 games.
All right. So as you just said, the play-in. So this episode's going to be coming out on Wednesday afternoon. Obviously, we're recording it on Tuesday. Tonight we've got the Heat and the Hornets, the 9-10 seed in Charlotte, and then the Blazers and the Suns are going to be facing off tonight, the 7 and 8 in Phoenix. So I want to go league-wide now. I want to get predictions for the entire playoff first round. And so I'll start. I'm going to pick the Miami Heat over the Hornets tonight. It feels like the Heat always are able to win the play-in game and screw over their draft position and then just get swept in the first round, especially post Jimmy Butler. I really think the Hornets are good, but Tyler Hero, I feel like he's going to take over this basketball game tonight. I think next year we're going to see a vast improvement with Charlotte, and they're going to be out of the play-in. And then I'll shift to the Blazers and the Suns. I'm going to be picking Phoenix. I really like what Phoenix has done this year. You know, they sold off Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, but the one guy who stayed through it all is Devin Booker. I think he is going to be able to take over the basketball game and dominate. So we'll start with the play-in tonight, and then we'll expand. I'm going to go the Heat, and I'm going to go the Suns.
I'm
All
gonna
right.
ask,
So,
you go.
you sure, Sam?
Yeah.
All right. So, for tonight, unlike Hunter, I'm going to take the Hornets to beat the Heat. And I think that Hornets fans have been waiting so long to have a game of this caliber in their arena. It's been so long since the Hornets have played meaningful basketball this late in the season. That arena is going to be absolutely rocking. I just don't think the Heat have a good enough supporting cast with Hero and Bam to even make a run into the playoffs this year. And then uh, for the Suns versus Blazers, I'm gonna go with the Suns. I think that the Suns are a really good team. They've battled injuries. I think that in the East, the Suns are probably a 5 seed, and I think that the Suns have battled injuries. They've played a lot of tough Western Conference opponents, and Dylan Brooks is back. They're fully healthy now. Jalen Green's back. So I think they beat the Blazers.
I think that the Hornets will also win the first game against the Heat. I think that uh, I don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure the Hornets are top five in 3-point shooting in the entire league. They have Brandon Miller, Continental, best rookie shooter in a really long time, and overall, I think they have a good enough big men to hold up with Bam Adebayo. I think Tyler Hero is just a carbon copy of Continental, and I think Continental's the better player, quite frankly. I think they have very similar play styles. They shoot the ball very similarly. They both, they could play, make, do whatever. So, yeah, I'm going to take the Hornets. I think that, like Ethan said, the building hasn't seen something like that in a really long time, and I think that the building will be absolutely rocking. But for the Phoenix to Portland game, I'm going to take Phoenix as well because Phoenix, as Ethan said, they have Jalen Green outside of Devin Booker, so he's still looking at it right now. He's an 18-point per game scorer. Like he's not a nobody. He's just been somebody that has been injured and battled with injuries that they haven't had. And they also have Grayson Allen, 16.5-point scorers. They have guys that I think won't that Portland won't be able to hold up with.
I'm gonna take both teams that Ethan took here. I like the Hornets over the Heat. I just think that they have a better team. I like Con Knibble a ton. Um, I just like their team more. I think their starting five is pretty loaded. They can really spread the ball out well. Really, all five of their starters can really play at a high level. And then I'm also gonna take the Suns tonight. I just think Devin Booker is the best player in the series. I think he's gonna be able to take over the game, and I think that the Suns will beat the Blazers.
Yeah, and so that's tonight. That's the main two series we're going to be giving real explanations for. Let's just go through and make picks for the rest. So the rest of the plan, we'll have the Sixers and the Magic. I'm going to take the Sixers by far. The Magic have too much turmoil for me to trust them. And then the Clippers and the Warriors. Although the Warriors, you don't want to let go of them and their dynasty. The Clippers have been one of the best teams in basketball since their tough start. So I'm going to take the Clippers and then the Sixers to advance. We're not going to go through the second round of the plan as we don't know it yet. And then the real series that are set so far, the Cavs and the Raptors. The Cavs, I think, are going to crush them. The Raptors, we were talking about how they would be such an easy opponent for the Knicks. The Pistons are going to face the 8 seed, the Celtics the 7. And then, obviously, we talked about the Knicks. I'm going to pick the Nuggets over the Timberwolves. That's going to be an awesome series, but Denver's been very hot as of late. And then the Lakers and the Rockets. It pains me to say it, but I think I'm going to have to go Houston with Reeves and Doncic being out for the series. I don't know if 41-year-old LeBron can carry the load. So, and then the Thunder obviously will play the 8 and the Spurs the 7.
Yeah, so for the rest of my playing, I'm going to go with actually the Magic over the Sixers, and then I am going to take the Clippers over the Warriors. And you said we're not doing round two, right, of the play-in?
No.
Not round 2 of the play, and just go to
Okay.
the regular series.
All right. So then for the Raptors Cavs, I mean, not much explanation needed. The Cavs are just a significantly better team. And then onto the West, the Nuggets Timberwolves is going to be the best series of the first round. I could very well see the Timberwolves winning, but if I had to make a clear pick, I would just say the Nuggets. And then for Lakers Rockets, I'm going to take the Rockets as well. I think that they're fully healthy, and when they're all playing together, they have a great squad. They just have to all play together. And also, obviously, the Lakers battling injury. And the Lakers have been a team we've seen that has kind of faltered in the playoffs as of recent years, even with Doncic last year. So,
Yeah, all right. So for my predictions, I'm gonna take Philly over Orlando. I don't. Orlando just lost to the Celtics G League team. I don't think that they're ready for a playoff spot. I think that the locker room in Orlando right now is at the all-time low. I don't think that they have what they need to compete for any type of playoff contention. And for the Clipper Warrior game, I'm going to take the Clippers. I think the Warriors dynasty is over. The Clippers did exactly what they needed to do this season. They traded Zubac. They got younger. They got Benedict Mathurin. They got Garland, and they've been playing very well ever since. But moving on to the East, Cavs Raptors. I don't think this is really a tough series. I think the Cavs will win this in 4 or 5. Maybe the Raptors sneak a game in Canada. Who knows? And Knicks, we already talked about, but for the Nuggets Timberwolves series, I just don't think you could bet against playoff Jokic. That is a real thing. He is the best player in the NBA, in my opinion, and you can't really go against that. So I'm going to take the Nuggets in that series. And with the Lakers injuries, I don't see anyone being able to take them confidently. The Rockets are a huge team. Not a huge team, but they are a very good playoff team, and I think that they will be able to compete. Although, I mean, Thunder are going to advance, Spurs are going to advance. I think that will end up being the Western Conference Finals, but not important. So yeah, those are my predictions.
And I'm just going to run down the list here. I'm going to take the Sixers over the Magic. I just think that they're the better team. Clippers, Warriors. I have to agree with you guys. Sad to say it, but I think the Warriors dynasty is over, so I'm going to take the Clippers. And then heading on to the full 7-game series, Cavs over Raptors pretty easily. I think that could be a sweep. Obviously, I'm going to take the Knicks. Pistons and Celtics, I'm going to take both of them over the 7 and 8 seeds. Nuggets, Timberwolves. I think this is going to be the best series of the first round across the whole league. I'm going to take the Nuggets. I just think Jokic is going to take over. He's the best player in the world. I like them there, but don't bet against Anthony Edwards. That's a really tough series. Lakers, Rockets. If Luka is out for the whole series, and so is Austin Reeves, Rockets are going to win pretty easily, I think. And then I'm going to take the Thunder and Spurs over the 7 and 8 seeds.
Yeah. So we're all unanimous on all of our picks to the first round. And then one last thing I want to get before we close out episode 6. Who do you guys think is the scariest team in the Eastern Conference? You know, is it Detroit, Boston, or do you fear Harden and Mitchell if they can get on the court consistently together? I'm going to go with Detroit. I think the Knicks could be able to beat them in a 7-game series, but especially if Cade is at 100%, they're a very good team.
I think the scariest team for the Knicks' sake is Detroit, just because they match up very well with us and we match up well versus Boston. But I think the scariest team in the East, just straight out, is Boston, just because of their experience and how well Jaylen Brown has been playing.
I'm also going to take the Celtics just because of obviously with the Tatum injury and him not coming back until later in the season. They obviously have given more players more opportunities, such as Baylor Shinerman, who, as we see last week, absolutely cooked the Knicks. I think he had 30 points, 7 threes.
Yeah.
So I think that only helped their case. Obviously, not the Tatum injury didn't help them, but him coming back and now they know who they can rely on and trust in the playoffs. I think that's going to be very beneficial for the Celtics and definitely a tough matchup for the Knicks.
Yeah, I'm also going to go to the Celtics. They had a pretty solid regular season, and then when Tatum was able to come back, they've looked much better since. We're 2 years out from them winning the NBA Finals, and then last year they were the best team in the regular season, I believe. But
in Cleveland.
They were up there though.
Yeah.
And then Tatum, obviously, the injury versus the Knicks.
Knicks still would have won, by the way.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah, they
sure,
would've.
but sure, that's not the point I'm making. But I think the Celtics are the scariest team in the East.
Yeah, so I'm the one alone with that. I think the Knicks are a matchup nightmare for Boston. I think this Knicks team was built to beat the Boston of the past, and now once Holiday, Porzingis, those guys are gone, I think it's a matchup nightmare for Missoula and the Celtics, but I see where the argument's being made. So that is going to close out episode 6 of Inside the Numbers. Another awesome episode. It was awesome to preview this upcoming series. So pumped for it. Thank you guys, Sam and Ethan, for joining us. And we will be back in the next couple days, just me and Jake, to talk Mets and Yankees as we hope they, especially the Mets, start to turn this around.
Thank you for having us, guys.
Thank you. It was great talking ball.